Hi, I'm David Shrier here at Bermuda Innovation Sprint with Stan Stalnaker of Hub Culture. Stan, thank you for taking the time.
Hi David, great to see you again.
As always, it's a fun conversation. So just for those of our audience who are new to Hub Culture, what is it? What is Hub Culture?
So Hub Culture is one of the longest running online social networks. It was established in 2002, and we have an ecosystem of technologies that create a technology platform. It includes VEN, a digital currency, Hub ID, digital identity, Ultra, which is asset tokenization, Propel, which is liquid governance, and Zeke, which is a holistic AI service.
So let's talk about Zeke for a minute. What does Zeke do for you?
Well, he's not very smart yet, but it's learning fast. Actually, the concept of this is that we wanted to create an open-ended customer experience that enabled machine learning across the social network. So almost any task that we can automate and add personality to, we're doing that under the umbrella of Zeke. But what's really interesting about it is the way that we're processing data. So we have a concept of what we call specs. And so we feed specs to Zeke. And so data in this architecture are called specs. And we give each spec a unique hashed identity that is then fed into a sort of custom blockchain. And this provides a large library repository for Zeke to refer to over time. So
Zeke is an AI that's running on top of a blockchain.
It's sort of not running on top of the blockchain, but the data that feeds the AI is being posted to the blockchain so that it has somewhere to go to look for answers in the future.
Okay, so your kind of immutable record of a data repository to train the AI is living on a blockchain.
Right, and so the idea is that over time, the data starts to function like individual one-off pieces of currency. So every piece of data has its own unique value, and that has an immutable record that can be referred back to. And over time, we expect that will create a kind of data mesh that will allow real-time response from the AI.
So this is a very advanced concept around bringing tokenization to data and creating new kinds of digital assets. You've been spending a lot of time on this question of tokenization and digital assets.
We have.
So you had a really big idea during the Bermuda Innovation Sprint. So what was your big idea around assets and tokenization?
Well, so that's exactly right. So last year we launched Ultra, which is a system for tokenization, and it allows us to mint a wide variety of tokenized assets. We have 19 stable coins, a variety of other different assets that are tokenized. Art, real estate is possible, securities will be possible soon. But in the context of the Innovation Sprint, we had the Liquidity Summit, and one of the panels was called Exotics and their legal frameworks. So exotics are like,
I already can sense we're into trouble now that we've put you in the realm of exotic currencies.
Well, so we're going on a safari.
And assets. All right, so you're on a safari
we're going
in the
deep
realm
into the jungle.
of exotic assets.
Yeah,
and what did you bag?
So we're going on this hunt for exotic assets deep in the jungle. And the things that we think about now that literally a year ago at the first Innovation Sprint seemed exotic were things like tokenized real estate or tokenized art or bringing securities. That was all exotic. That's no longer exotic in just 1 year. That's all pretty standard. We can see that really firmly on the horizon if it's not already here in many cases. But so then I got to thinking okay, this panel is about exotics. What is actually exotic today? And the answer is not asset tokenization, because technically, we kind of know what that looks like, but I've been having a hard time thinking about where it goes beyond that. The first answer would be DAOs, or other types of decentralized autonomous organizations or entities or things like that. But we can even see now, they're deeper in the jungle, but they're rare, but they're not exotic, right? But so then I started thinking about quantum. And so the idea of quantum assets was the breakthrough innovation idea.
Okay.
And so I've never heard of it anywhere else.
Okay.
And I had to ask these.
So this is like an offshoot of quantum computing? Or?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the idea here, and we had to ask these legal guys, and I'm like, okay, what would be the legal framework for a quantum asset? And so this is interesting because in quantum, it's actually not as weird as people think, because we have now arrived at the age of quantum computing. Microsoft, Google, all the big guys have some form of a quantum computer. And the idea with quantum is that it exists and doesn't exist. The data exists and doesn't exist based on a probability of kind of occurrence. And so it's simultaneous. And so this allows us to move data like exponentially faster because it's there and
Some
it's not
people
there.
think even simultaneously.
Well, I mean, China just teleported a molecule, a real molecule, from Earth to space just in the last couple of weeks.
Using a quantum system.
Using quantum.
Yeah.
And so basically teleportation of physicality will be possible with teleportation.
I want to be really clear about this. This is not science fiction. This is an actual science experiment that was conducted by a major nation.
Yeah, and it's true. But so you take that a step back from like teleporting you to the moon, the ability to teleport data in the form of electricity.
We're probably going to have that before we could teleport me.
Certainly, but data teleportation is definitely on the horizon, and it's here before you know it. Within 5 years, definitely within 10.
Sure.
And so that means if it's quantum data, then it can be a quantum asset in the world of blockchain.
Yes.
And the big thing is that quantum breaks SHA-256, which is the encryption algorithm for Bitcoin and the entire $250 billion blockchain industry.
So a lot of people have been talking about that when they mention quantum in the context of computing or security or blockchain. They mention the idea that the encryption that most of the world's financial system and that Bitcoin and blockchain run on is something that can be broken very rapidly with quantum. But you're talking about something different. You're talking about quantum assets.
Well, right. And so first of all, you have the break, right? So quantum will break SHA-256. And so that means that there's a huge economic incentive for companies, miners, for blockchain to figure out quantum.
Yeah, post-quantum.
And to use it,
They want the next generation
to use
encryption.
Quantum. So next generation encryption will be quantum encryption, which will be like magnitudes better than SHA-256. But that also means that will open the door to quantum assets. So then the question becomes, when you have a quantum asset, it both exists and does not exist at the same time, simultaneously. And the probability of the asset occurring will be dependent on a probability. And so how do you regulate an asset that doesn't exist?
Or that might exist or might not exist.
Exactly, depending on any number of variables or time or other things. And so this was the legal question that we asked these firms. And of course they were like...
Their brains melted through their ears. And then they said...
Exactly. Well, so there were 3 answers.
Okay.
So one of the answers came from Walker's, which is a very well-respected firm. And they said, we've never heard of this before because it doesn't exist, but it's possible that it could have to do with rights. Okay. So you could pre-assign rights to the scenario, and that would give you an answer.
Okay.
Another person from Appleby, which is another major firm here in Bermuda, said that it actually could revolve around action, you could say. So like, what is it doing? And what is it actually, the outcome of the experience? And then they kind of went into, it's very interesting because you could end up with like, especially if it was attached to an asset payment, you could end up with this weird ping pong where it exists, doesn't exist, exists, doesn't exist, and you would have like different contracts for the state. So you'd have like 2 contracts attached to it, depending on the state that manifests.
Okay.
And it could bounce back and forth, but simultaneously. So you'd literally have like a currency that could be transacting constantly, but doesn't look like it's moving because it's simultaneous. I don't even know, it's so mind-bending.
Well, it's quantum superposition, but that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
So, and what was the third answer?
And then the third answer was, it'll depend on what the regulators say.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's a fascinating idea. So Stan Stalnaker from Hub Culture here with quantum assets.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.